All right, listen up. The only gift that any dad wants on Father's Day is Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships the most iconic foods from the best restaurants across the country straight to his door for free. Let him kick back and chow down on award-winning barbecue from Texas, epic deep dish pizza from Chicago, or colossal pastrami sandwiches from New York. Make Dad feel like an absolute legend this Father's Day and go to goldbelly.com to get 20% off your first order with promo code DAD. That's 20% off at goldbelly.com, code DAD.
Your weekend is not complete without the First Lady of New York Radio. It's the Joan Hamburg Show. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
One of the questions that I get, and like so many people, how do I get in your business? I love radio. I want to be in radio. I want to do podcasts. Who does this? How do you know? And I often say there's one person you have to become very familiar with, Valerie Geller. And Valerie is a podcast and a broadcast trainer. She's a talent coach. She works with people like you, maybe, with groups throughout the whole country. And she is the woman to know. She has books that teach her techniques to people who want to be in this business, no matter where they live. And it's not easy. She paid her dues. She's had a radio career from programming to management. She's been on the air. She's been behind the scenes. And when people say, who do I look to? Valerie's the kind of person that you look to. Her Beyond Powerful Radio, that's an audio communicator's guide to the digital world. It's her 5th book, I think, and I'll let her tell us. But I'm sure she started out and never dreamt that she would end up in this position. So, Valerie, are you still having a good time?
Well, Joan, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I'm very honored because you are one of the icons in spoken word media, and you have been a superstar for years. You already know the secret of life in podcasting and radio, which is this isn't radio and this isn't podcasting. It is life with a microphone. It is the human struggle. It is what's interesting. It is holding up a mirror and reflecting life. And one of the curses of our business, and again, this is a thing you know, one of the curses of radio and podcasting is that the great ones make it look so easy because everyone can talk. And so because the great ones make it look easy, everybody thinks they can do it. And everybody can do it, but they can't do it well. My job is whatever level you're at, I can give you tools and skills to get better at it, to help you get, keep, and grow audiences. But just like a great football player or golfer or ballet dancer, the great ones make it look effortless and easy. We're about to have the Olympics. You're going to watch these people and they just look like they're, it ain't no thing. And this is their whole life of practice and struggle and learning. And spoken word is an art form. Radio done well, talk radio done well, is an art form. And it's really the struggle to be human, helping audiences to get through another day with what they need to know and to inform, entertain, inspire, persuade, and most importantly, and this is one of the things you do best, and I'm just in awe of you, connect people. People feel connected to you. The great hosts, even though you might be a total stranger, when somebody comes up to a talented host and says, I feel like I know you because I've been listening to your podcast or I listen to your radio show and I've never met you, that I feel like I could just go have a cup of coffee with you. That means you're doing it right. And those are the stars. And Joan, you are in that category.
I thank you very much. But you are a great storyteller, too, and I think that's very important for people to understand. You've got to be able, if you want to be in our industry, you've got to be able to tell a story. because, reach out and touch someone. If you can't do that, they're not going to listen. And they don't listen, you don't have an audience.
What you're saying is so true. We're really in the story business. Somebody on an airplane just the other day asked me, what do you do? And I said, I work in the storytelling business, and that's the business. It's not radio. It's not podcasting. It's stories. It's people. It's life. And one of the things, I work with a lot of news people and journalists, and we work with people from print, who work on newspapers to try to become podcasters or radio people. And the first thing we teach them, because they've learned to do attribution at the top, who said it, rather than what's in it for the listener or what's in it for the viewer if you're doing TV. So instead of, let's say, for example, according to a press release from the Museum of Modern Art, the Picasso will only be there through the 15th. Flip it around. If you haven't seen the Picasso, you only have until the 15th. That's according to a press release from the Museum of Modern Art. So just teaching, I have like a bag of tricks that we teach people so that they can work, engage more deeply and engage immediately. Because right now, and this is true, and it's an awful truth, you have 3 to 5 seconds on air and maybe 10 seconds in a podcast to engage an audience. Audiences have the attention of a flea, and there's so much distraction with social media and, what's happening on your watch and on your phone and on every screen that you can look at. And people are so distracted by shiny objects and all the media around them that to get, keep, and grow audiences becomes a challenge. So we go back to the old chestnuts, which is, what is the structure? And what I teach is a model, focus. What is your topic? What do you want to talk about? And how is this going to be interesting to people? So we go back to the Frank Magan and Associates study, which happened in the 1970s and is still true today. The 3 big topics are health and safety, of course, money and power, and that's, I think politics fits under that, but it's really money, saving money, corruption around money, evil around money, great stuff around money. And then the last one is emotion, the heart. So health, heart, pocketbook were the 3 big topics. And then in the 80s and 90s, another topic came in, which was transformative, how your life can be better tomorrow than it is today because of something you're hearing on the podcast or hearing on the broadcast. And even, to be quite honest with you, even a traffic report can be something that transforms your life. If you know that it's backed up on the LIE, to go another way or to wait a half hour. That transforms your life experience and takes you out of a negative one into one that is going to be more positive. But anything that, and in fact, when you listen to the commercials, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to grow hair? Do you want to have no bugs in your garden? Do you want to have a better interest rate? It's all about how your life can be transformed. And it's really not transformation. It's do this thing and you will be happy. You will be happy in life.
Can you teach people, Valerie, can you teach people to listen? Isn't that part of what you do so well? You understand how important it is to listen, to be able to communicate by listening.
Well, you're an amazing listener, and there's 2 kinds of listening, okay? There's listening to take in, and it's very powerful to just hear what someone is saying and hear their experience and bear witness to their story and listen to them. Then there's another kind of listening, which I fear happens a lot, on radio and podcasts, and you see it on television all the time. And I'm sure people who are like this. They listen just enough so that they can make the next comment from their life. Or if it's a stand-up comedian, they listen enough just so they can make the next funny comment. And one of the reasons why I never would hire stand-up comics when I worked as a talk radio programmer was that, with very few exceptions, Joy Behar being one of them, they did not listen. And they were so worried about them saying the next funny thing or being entertaining that they would just use what you say to react off of it. And so teaching real listening, what did this person say and what do they mean? And then the last part of listening is, there's the words that they use, but it's what they're saying, but what are they telling you? Okay. So for example, when I worked in England, and there's cultural differences, And I'm having a cup of coffee with a colleague, John, and he looks at me and he goes, Valerie, are you about done with that coffee? Well, what that means is we have a meeting at 8 o'clock and we have to go now. But he's British and he can't say that. So what he's really saying to me is we need to leave.
Right.
But the way he said it was, are you about done? So I think that, understanding who you're talking to, it's not one size fits all, and it also becomes, do you have the bandwidth to listen? There are times when people are very open and they can listen, and there are times when their brains are like hot wires and they don't have capacity to hear you. And so that's one of the beauty of podcasts, is that people can listen when they are open and ready and willing and hungry to hear what you have to say.
Meta AI is the personal AI that's tailored to you, now with its very own app. It's built to get to know you, offering helpful answers and inspiration. Looking for something to add to your bucket list? Meta AI goes beyond traveling the world. It remembers you're a basketball fanatic and suggests you attend one of the playoff games. Just start typing or speaking to get the answers you need, wherever and whenever, because Meta AI is your personal AI. Download the Meta AI app, now available on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
Choice Hotels gets you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
I'm talking to Valerie Geller, very successful radio career, from management to programming to on-air, and worked literally all over the country. Has her own or had her own consulting company, Geller Media, and has presented at conferences and meetings all over the country and lectures at major journalism schools. When you got started, did you have a vision? Were you going to be Valerie Geller on the air, or were you going to go into management? What propelled you to where you are now?
Okay, well, this is going to really date me, but I was, a baby that came out of Woodward and Bernstein. That journalists could tell the truth and right the wrongs and get the bad guys and help people through information is power. And I loved radio. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I called my first talk show when I was 7 years old. Joe Pine was on the air.
I remember
and he did a show, right.
Yelling and screaming.
Well, and that's what happened. He was yelling and screaming. I never heard a grown-up yell and scream like that. My parents were very polite people. They never yelled and screamed in public. But here was Joe, mad. But what he did one night was he did a show about how children should be seen and not heard, and you should never take them to a restaurant because they make too much noise and they ruin the meal for the adults. And I was so upset at that. I got up out of bed, went down the hall, picked up the phone, and called his radio show. And I was like 7 or 8, and I said, now look, when you're little, you're told what to do, what to eat, when to go to bed, when to go to school, what to wear, who to play with. Everything in your life when you're little is dictated to you. The only thing we can do is make noise. So you just leave us alone and let us make noise. And Joe said, kid, you can call my show anytime. And I became like a little kid caller on the Joe Pine show.
So funny.
And, run into people like 50 years later who go, oh my God, you were that little kid on Joe Pine, But the bottom line is I fell in love with radio, the magic of radio, that you could sit somewhere and listen to voices and hear stories and meet people that you would never meet in real life, but hear their stories. And I understood that it was a way to bust prejudice. If you understood somebody's life story and you'd never met anybody like that, you could understand their life in a different way. And I was just fascinated, and I loved radio, and I just wanted to work in radio. And so I was so lucky that I got to do so many jobs, produce and host and be a news director and a journalist. And finally, I got so frustrated because the way that I learned was if you made mistakes, you got fired. And if you did well, you'd get a better job offer, and you'd have to pack up and move to another place to have a bigger job. And I kept thinking, I wish there was a book that someone could have given me. And so I wrote the book. And so the first book came out in the late 90s, and this is now the fifth book coming out in November, and it's called Beyond Powerful Radio. And this one's about podcasting and audio media and AI and social media and how to tell stories in a very short attention span world.
And when you think, and I know people ask you all the time about careers, how tough is it to break into this industry today? When I got started, it was still a deal, but there weren't a lot of women, and they were actually looking for women. So, I had a break.
And what happened to you is you were on a show that was hosted by men, but you were a little part of it, and it became so wildly popular.
The John Gambling show, you mean?
Right, you were on the gambling show, the original gambling, not the son, the dad.
Right.
And I think that what happened with you is that you were so popular and you tested so well, and you were such a contributor to audience growth with women and with men that, and you really had a heart. You were somebody who always looked at issues from how it affected people, not just what was happening. And always interesting. And so they expanded what you did, and you became a star and are still doing this all these years later because you are somebody who has the talent, the ability. And we have an expression, product permanence promotion. You had the goods, you did it consistently over time, and people know you.
Well, and John R., they became my good friends, that whole family. And to this day, I'm certainly in touch with John R., who worked here at ABC.
Right.
Yeah, he was here. I don't know if you were here when he was here.
I was not. That was after my time, but I did hire Joy Behar.
Oh, you're kidding. I remember because I was on another station then.
I remember you were on WR. Right? We would look at you and go, okay, we've got to beat Joan.
And I would sit in my car listening to Behar, who's one of my good friends, and say, I can't let that woman be on the air with me the same time. I can't have that happen. Anyway, we ended up being good friends. We had Lynn Samuels
prior to her, and then, but it was a wonderful time, and she
Bob
was just
Grant,
amazing.
Remember?
Of course.
Bob Grant, he had a very tall girlfriend, and he wasn't tall, and I remember saying to him, naively, of course, how come you have a girlfriend who's almost 6 foot tall and you're so short? He said, well, she's the only person I know who can reach the top of the shelves. And that was a typical Bob Grant, thing. He would bring his kids in, and I had to babysit because I was one of the few women. I said, well, why can't you ask a guy to do that? He looked at me like, are you kidding? That's like your job.
It was probably 10 years in before they stopped asking me to make coffee.
Yeah, at least.
I think it took 10 years for that.
At least.
It's like I actually looked at a guy and said, look, I can fire you. Are you sure you want to ask me to make coffee?
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at StitchFix.com.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
Well, we all had a lot of adventures in this crazy business.
Sure.
And with all these people, and we saw women start to rise in this and actually have radio careers. So
you asked about careers. Actually, to be very honest with you, Joan, they say right now that every person graduating from college today is probably going to have 5 or 6 full careers.
Right.
And I think that's exciting. One of the problems with jobs, the gold watch days of retiring after 30 years, is that people got bored in their work. And the beauty of broadcasting and now podcasting and really all of media is that it holds up a mirror and reflects life. So it's not unusual for experts, people who have worked in a field and have acquired some form of expertise, to do a radio show or a podcast for a while. And to be very honest with you, and this is something about really podcasting, there are 71 million episodes up right now for podcasts.
You're kidding? 71 million?
Yes, globally. And Apple has 2.6 million active podcasts right now. But most hosts do 3 to 8 episodes and then they quit because this is hard work, okay? It's hard work. It's not just sitting down and talking to someone and you become a star. There's editing, there's marketing, there's pre-production, post-production. I mean, there's posting it, it's a huge, huge job. And so people do it. And it's one of those things where the myth about podcasting is I'll put up a podcast and people will listen to it and I'll become a star. It's not quite like that. So I really think the more you do, and I certainly, when I talk to journalism students, learn as much as you can. You know, the communicator fields, if you like to talk to people and you're a good communicator, we hire people for talk radio and talk show hosts. And you know this, a lot of talk show hosts are lawyers, but also psychologists and writers and teachers and priests, ministers, rabbis, anybody who has to, communicate and reach people deeply and tell stories and, communicate for a living. And again, the one group I tend not to look at is stand-up comedians. Again, you hit it early on, which is they're not good listeners, but generally some individuals are, but mostly they're not. And so it becomes find people in the communicator fields, and they can all easily do these other things. They can easily write or teach, or if they're interested in law, or they're interested in psychology, they're interested in, the clergy, they can all excel at all these things. And talk radio and podcast hosting is one of those things. And a lot of people who are good at marketing and sales are also very, very charming and wonderful hosts.
Okay. And would you say there are a lot of opportunities in our industry today?
I think you have to make your own opportunities. I think when we all started, you got a job and there was an entire infrastructure that worked around you. What's different today is that when we hire somebody for radio or look at them for a podcast, we look at what's their social media following. Okay, what have they done other than this that they can bring to this? You have to be more of a one-man band or more of a self-starter. You're expected to have some sort of a social media following. You're expected to do a lot of the heavy lifting on your own. If you're willing to do this, the world is your oyster. But it's hard, hard work. If you're lucky and you're Julia Louis-Dreyfus and you end up with a podcast and you have an infrastructure behind you, that's fantastic. But she did an awful lot of things to get to that top of the mountain before she started her podcast. Right. So to answer your question, yes, there are lots of opportunities. If you have something to say, if you have a unique journey to share that we cannot get elsewhere, if you're somebody who has humor, strong opinions, passion, good listener, interest in things, who is somebody who is a thought leader or interested in thought leaders, someone who can offer audiences a thing they cannot get elsewhere, you have a great chance to make it, and there is opportunity.
And Valerie Geller's book, your fifth, Beyond Powerful Radio, an Audio Communicator's Guide to the Digital World, will hold your hand and walk you through a lot of these.
Thank you. And if I can just do a shameless, blatant plug, the website for the book is beyondpowerfulradio.com. And for my work, if anyone is interested in coaching or, training for this, you can reach me through Geller Media, Geller media.com.
Thank you, Valerie. I love talking to you. We'll talk again, I hope.
Joan, thank you. It is an honor and a pleasure, and I'm a fan, and I'm thrilled. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Valerie Geller, and I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WABC. Lots more ahead, so stay tuned.